The Glock's weight felt familiar in my palm as I watched Marcus Sterling's lifeless eyes reflect the downtown Raleigh neon. Contract fulfilled. I methodically wiped fingerprints from surfaces, muscle memory guiding my movements through the sterile routine of cleanup. 23 jobs over 8 years, and I still felt nothing. That's what made me valuable. Time to retire, Taylor, I whispered to myself, checking the window one final time before vanishing into the October night. The morning sun painted my blonde hair golden as I walked toward the Sterling Industries building. Just another concerned employee, arriving early. Nothing suspicious about Taylor Howard, fitness consultant. 6 blocks away, Nora Thomas hefted her mailbag and smiled at Mrs. Chen's poodle. Hey there, princess. Where's your mom today? The dog yapped, tail wagging as Nora sorted through packages. Something caught her attention. 3 envelopes addressed to different residents, all bearing the same overseas return address. Her brown eyes narrowed with curiosity. Weird, she muttered, tucking brunette curls behind her ear. Her postal route included Sunset Manor, where she'd grown fond of the forgotten souls warehoused there. Today felt different, though. Heavier somehow. The nursing home's antiseptic smell hit me as I signed the visitor log. My cover story, visiting my ailing aunt, had worked for months. In reality, I met my handler here, reporting completed contracts while elderly residents provided perfect background noise. Mr. Walsh is in the garden today, the nurse informed me. I nodded, knowing damn well Walsh wasn't my aunt. The garden pathway led past the mailroom, where a woman with kind eyes sorted packages. She looked up as I passed, offering a genuine smile that stopped me cold. Not flirtation or fear, just warmth. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Her voice carried traces of Tennessee. Sure, I replied, throat suddenly dry. Nora finished organizing medicine deliveries, chatting softly with residents who rarely received visitors. Her laughter echoed down hallways, drawing curious glances from staff who'd grown accustomed to institutional silence. In room 247, she found Mr. Peterson struggling with a crossword puzzle. 7 letters for deadly nightshade, he mumbled. Belladonna, someone said behind her. Nora turned to find the mysterious blonde woman from the hallway, now holding a book of poetry. Those gray eyes seemed to catalog everything, like they were recording details for some unknown purpose. You read to patients? Nora asked. Sometimes. My standard deflection, but something about her made me want to say more. That's sweet. I'm Nora, by the way. Nora Thomas. Taylor. I hesitated before adding, Taylor Howard. She extended her hand, and when our palms touched, electricity shot up my arm. Not the clinical contact I was used to, but something alive, dangerous. Nice meeting you, Taylor Howard. The way she said my name made my chest tighten. I released her hand quickly, professional distance reasserting itself. But as I walked away to meet Walsh, I couldn't shake the memory of brown eyes that saw past my careful mask. For the first time in years, someone had looked at me like I was human. And that terrified me more than any target ever had. Reading to dementia patients wasn't part of my original cover plan, but Mrs. Davidson's empty stare haunted me after that first week. The poetry book became my prop, then somehow became real. Sitting beside hospital beds, watching forgotten faces light up at familiar verses, I discovered something unexpected in myself. She was a phantom of delight, I read aloud, watching Mr. Peterson's cloudy eyes focus on memories decades old. Wordsworth, he whispered. Haven't heard that since college. These people had lived full lives before being warehoused here. Wars fought, loves lost, children raised. Their stories mattered, even if family had stopped listening, maybe especially then. 3 weeks of this routine, and I looked forward to Tuesday and Thursday afternoons in ways that terrified me. Meanwhile, Nora made her rounds like clockwork. But these weren't just mail deliveries anymore. She knew Mrs. Chen worried about her grandson overseas. She remembered that Mr. Jackson's arthritis flared on rainy days. The residents watched for her approach, faces brightening at her familiar laugh. Package from your daughter, she announced, handing Mrs. Rodriguez a care package from California. She remembered my birthday. Tears gathered in the old woman's eyes. Of course she did. You raised her right. These moments of connection fed something in Nora's soul that her regular postal route couldn't touch. She'd grown up with grandparents who'd been forgotten by everyone else, so she understood the hunger for human contact that lived behind these aging faces. Walking past the reading room, she caught glimpses of the mysterious Taylor woman with residents gathered around her chair. Her voice carried a surprising gentleness when she read, completely different from the controlled edge she'd displayed during their brief introduction. Curious, Nora murmured to herself. Our paths crossed again in the main hallway, and this time I couldn't pretend not to notice her. She carried herself with purpose, but there was kindness in how she navigated around wheelchair-bound residents, never treating them like obstacles. How's Mr. Peterson today? She asked, falling into step beside me. Good. He remembers more poetry than he lets on. Smart man. I bring him crossword puzzle books sometimes. We walked in companionable silence toward the exit, neither rushing to end this unexpected moment of normalcy. Outside, October afternoon light caught the auburn highlights in her brown hair, and I found myself memorizing details I had no business collecting. Same time Thursday? She asked, adjusting her mailbag strap. Probably. Good. They look forward to it. She paused at her postal truck. Hey, Taylor. Something in her tone made me turn back. Thanks for reading to them. It matters more than you know. Watching her drive away, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Professional distance was my survival tool, but this woman somehow slipped past every defense I'd built over 8 years of careful isolation. Thursday couldn't come fast enough, which should have scared the hell out of me. Instead, for the first time since childhood, I found myself looking forward to something that had nothing to do with contracts or targets, or the cold mathematics of elimination. I was looking forward to seeing Nora Thomas smile at me again, like I was worth knowing. That night, staring at my ceiling, I wondered what it meant that a mail carrier's genuine warmth could crack foundations I'd thought were unshakable. The Hartwell contract file lay untouched on my coffee table for 3 days. Judge Patricia Hartwell, corruption charges pending trial, someone's loose end that needed permanent resolution. Standard work. Except nothing felt standard anymore. I sat watching rain streak my apartment window, remembering Mr. Peterson reciting Yeats from memory yesterday, the way his face transformed from lost to luminous when the words returned to him. These people at Sunset Manor weren't just cover anymore. They'd become real. What the hell was happening to me? My phone buzzed. Walsh, of course. Timeline? Soon, I typed back, though my finger hesitated over the send button. Thursday arrived gray and drizzling. I found Nora in the cafeteria, sharing coffee with Mrs. Rodriguez, both women laughing at some shared joke. Her genuine warmth made everyone around her shine brighter, including the usually stern nursing staff. Taylor, she waved me over. Join us? I should have declined, should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I found myself sliding into the uncomfortable plastic chair across from them. Mrs. Rodriguez was just telling me about her dancing days in Miami, Nora explained, brown eyes sparkling with interest. Salsa competitions every weekend, the elderly woman added proudly. My husband, he could move those hips. Nora laughed, a sound that did something dangerous to my chest. I can barely manage country line dancing. Country girl? I asked, surprising myself with the question. Tennessee born and bred, moved here 5 years ago for adventure. She studied my face with curious intensity. What about you? You don't sound local either. Here and there, I deflected. Military family. Partial truth. Close enough. Mrs. Rodriguez excused herself for afternoon medication, leaving us alone with steaming coffee cups and sudden awkwardness. Nora wasn't deterred by my vague responses. If anything, mystery seemed to intrigue her more. You're different from most volunteers, she said, stirring sugar into her cup. More intense. Intense how? Like you're always watching. Calculating. She leaned forward slightly. What do you do when you're not reading poetry to dementia patients? Fitness consulting. Another half-truth. You. Just mail. But these folks make it worthwhile. She gestured toward residents scattered throughout the cafeteria. They've got stories nobody bothers hearing anymore. Something in her voice reminded me of my grandmother, who died alone in a place like this while I was completing basic training. The memory caught me off guard, creating an unexpected crack in my armor. My grandmother loved Wordsworth too, I heard myself say. Nora's expression softened impossibly. Tell me about her. For 30 minutes, I found myself sharing memories I'd buried years ago. Grand's garden, Sunday dinners, the way she'd read to me when nightmares kept me awake. Nora listened without judgment, occasionally asking gentle questions that drew out details I'd forgotten I remembered. She sounds wonderful, Nora said finally. She was. Is that why you volunteer here? I nodded, not trusting my voice. It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. Walking to the parking lot afterward, Nora slowed her pace to match mine. October wind caught her hair, and I caught myself wanting to tuck those loose curls behind her ear. Hey, she said suddenly, turning to face me. Want to grab dinner sometime? Actual dinner, not cafeteria coffee? Every instinct screamed danger. Personal connections were liability. Emotional attachment was weakness. I'd survived 8 years by remaining isolated, untouchable. I don't date much, I said carefully. Neither do I. But you're different, Taylor, and different is good. Before I could overthink it, before professional caution could reassert itself, she stepped closer and pressed her lips to mine. Soft, tentative, questioning. Her hand found my cheek, thumb brushing across skin I'd trained to feel nothing. But I felt everything, warmth, want, possibility. When we broke apart, her brown eyes searched mine for reaction. Instead of stepping back, I found myself leaning into her touch. Dinner sounds good, I whispered. The smile that spread across her face could have powered the entire city. Walking away, I knew I'd just made a choice that would change everything. The Hartwell contract still waited on my table, but for the first time in my professional life, murder felt like the wrong answer. Walsh's voice carried threat beneath professional courtesy. Judge Hartwell's trial begins Monday. Window closes tomorrow night. I stared at the contract photo, a stern woman in judicial robes who, apparently forgotten which pockets she was supposed to keep clean. Standard corruption case, messy enough to require permanent solution. Understood, I replied, phone pressed against my ear while watching courthouse security cameras through binoculars. Something wrong, Taylor? You've never hesitated this long. Everything was wrong. 3 weeks ago, I'd have eliminated Hartwell without question. Now, after coffee dates and poetry readings and Nora's laugh echoing through my thoughts, murder felt like choosing darkness over light. Just being thorough. Don't let personal complications interfere with business. The line went dead. Walsh knew. Somehow, he always knew. That evening, I met Nora at Giuseppe's, a small Italian place downtown where candlelight softened her features and made everything feel dangerously intimate. She wore a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes, and I caught myself staring longer than professionally acceptable. Penny for your thoughts? She asked, twirling pasta around her fork. Work stuff? Boring. Fitness consulting that requires surveillance equipment? My blood froze. What? Your trunk. When you opened it for groceries yesterday, I saw cameras and other gear. Her voice carried curiosity, not accusation. Military family makes sense now. Private security? I could lie, should lie. Instead, I found myself walking a tightrope between truth and fiction. Something like that. Background investigations, mostly. Dangerous? Sometimes. She reached across the table, fingertips brushing my knuckles. Be careful out there. I worry about you. Nobody had worried about me in 15 years. The sensation felt foreign and terrifying and absolutely addictive. After dinner, we walked through downtown Raleigh, past the courthouse where Judge Hartwell would die tomorrow if I followed orders. Nora's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining like they belonged together. Tell me something real about yourself, she said suddenly. What do you mean? Everyone has secrets. But underneath all that mystery, who is Taylor Howard? We stopped beneath a streetlight, her face turned up toward mine with complete trust. She had no idea she was holding hands with a killer. No idea that tomorrow night I might take someone's life and return to her like nothing happened. The weight of that deception nearly crushed me. I'm someone trying to figure out what comes next, I said finally. We all are. She stepped closer, her free hand tracing my jawline. But we don't have to figure it out alone. When she kissed me this time, there was nothing tentative about it. Her lips opened under mine, invitation and promise combined. I pulled her against me, tasting wine and possibility and everything I'd convinced myself I didn't deserve. But even as desire shot through my system, reality intruded. My phone buzzed against my hip, probably Walsh with final instructions. Target locations, escape routes, the technical details of ending a life. Your phone, Nora murmured against my mouth. Ignore it. But the spell was broken. She pulled back slightly, studying my expression with those two perceptive brown eyes. You're scared, she said softly. Of what? This, us. Whatever's happening between us. She wasn't wrong. Terror lived in my chest alongside growing feelings I couldn't name or control. Everything about Nora Thomas threatened the careful walls I'd built around my heart. I'm not good at this, I admitted. Neither am I. But maybe we can be bad at it together. Her smile could have melted Arctic ice. Walking her to the postal truck, I memorized every detail. The way moonlight caught her hair. How her fingers felt laced through mine. The sound of her breathing beside me. Because tomorrow might change everything. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the Hartwell contract, while Nora's perfume lingered on my shirt. For 8 years, elimination had been simple mathematics. Remove threat, collect payment, move forward. But mathematics couldn't account for brown eyes that saw past my defenses, or hands that touched me like I was precious instead of dangerous. My phone rang. Walsh again. Final confirmation. Tomorrow, 9 p.m. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of choice settling over me like lead. The Hartwell contract burned unfinished on my kitchen counter as storm clouds gathered over Raleigh. I'd made my choice. Or rather, Nora had made it for me with those trusting brown eyes and the way she said my name like it meant something good. At 7 p.m., I knocked on her apartment door instead of positioning myself outside the courthouse. Taylor, you're early. She opened the door wearing jeans and a soft sweater, hair loose around her shoulders. Perfect timing, though. I was just opening wine. Thunder rumbled overhead as she led me inside. Her place felt warm, lived in, with books scattered everywhere and photos of Tennessee landscapes decorating the walls. Everything I'd forgotten to want in my sterile, temporary lifestyle. Red or white? She asked, holding up bottles. Whatever you're having. She poured generous glasses while I studied family photos, parents, siblings, aunts and uncles gathered around holiday tables, normal people with normal lives who probably never wondered if someone they loved was a killer. The lights flickered once, then died completely. Damn storm, Nora muttered, fumbling for her phone's flashlight. This happens sometimes. Old wiring. Candles appeared from kitchen drawers, casting dancing shadows across her face as she lit them throughout the living room. The intimate lighting transformed her apartment into something from a fairy tale, all golden warmth and soft edges. Well, this is romantic, she said, settling beside me on the couch. Accidental romance, but I'll take it. Outside, wind howled and rain lashed the windows. But inside, surrounded by candlelight and the scent of vanilla from her candles, the storm felt distant. Like we existed in our own protected world. Tell me something nobody else knows, she said, curling her legs under her. My phone sat silent in my pocket. By now, Walsh would be wondering where I was. Judge Hartwell would be alive, walking free, corruption charges intact. My entire professional identity was dissolving with each minute I spent here instead of there. And I'd never felt more right about anything in my life. I've never felt safe with anyone before, I heard myself say. And now? Now I'm terrified of how safe you make me feel. She set down her wine glass, shifting closer until I could see gold flecks in her brown eyes. Fear isn't always bad, you know. Sometimes it means you're about to do something that matters. When she kissed me, everything else disappeared. The contract, Walsh, 8 years of careful emotional isolation. None of it existed beyond the circle of candlelight surrounding us. Her lips tasted like wine and promises, her hands tangling in my hair as I pulled her closer. I need you to know, I whispered against her mouth. I'm not who you think I am. You're exactly who I think you are. Her fingers traced my cheekbone. Complicated, guarded, but good underneath all that armor. If only she knew how wrong she was. How much blood stained the hands now trembling against her skin. But when she stood and took my hand, leading me toward her bedroom, guilt couldn't compete with desire. Candlelight followed us, casting our shadows on walls as she turned to face me beside her bed. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. Instead of answering, I cupped her face and kissed her with 8 years of loneliness behind it. She melted against me, her sweater disappearing as we sank onto soft sheets. Her skin felt like silk under my palms, every touch igniting fires I'd forgotten could burn. She whispered my name like a prayer as I explored the curve of her neck, the hollow of her throat, mapping territory I wanted to claim as mine forever. When she arched beneath me, breath-catching as we moved together in ancient rhythm, I understood why people talked about heaven. This was as close as someone like me would ever get. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets and candlelight, her head on my chest as rain continued its assault outside. Her breathing had settled to deep, even waves, fingers drawing lazy circles on my skin. "Stay," she murmured sleepily. "Always," I replied, meaning it completely. My phone buzzed once from the living room, then again. Walsh, probably, wondering why Judge Hartwell was still breathing and I was unreachable. Let him wonder. For the first time in my adult life, I'd chosen love over duty, light over darkness. Whatever consequences waited in the morning, they couldn't touch this perfect moment of being entirely, completely myself with someone who somehow loved that self without knowing its darkest truths. Thunder crashed overhead, but wrapped in Nora's arms, I felt safer than I'd ever felt in my life. Dawn brought reality crashing back like a sledgehammer to my skull. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Walsh, each one more threatening than the last. The final voicemail made my blood freeze. "Hartwell lived. You'll both pay for this mistake. Both." They knew about Nora. I slipped from her bed, watching her sleep peacefully in morning light streaming through windows. She looked so damn innocent, hair spread across the pillow like silk, completely unaware that my selfish choice had painted a target on her back. My hands shook as I pulled on clothes. 8 years of careful compartmentalization, destroyed in one night of weakness. "Morning, beautiful," Nora's sleepy voice stopped me at the bedroom door. "I have to go." The words came out sharper than intended. She sat up, sheet clutched to her chest, brown eyes instantly alert. "What's wrong?" "Everything. My former life had found us, and people like Walsh didn't leave loose ends." "Work emergency. I'll call you later." But even as I said it, I knew later might never come. Driving through empty Raleigh streets, I spotted them in my rearview mirror. Black sedan, tinted windows, following 3 cars back. Professional surveillance that I'd taught them myself during my early days with the organization. They'd found me within hours, which meant they'd find Nora just as easily. My apartment had been tossed, subtle but thorough, everything searched and carefully replaced. They'd been looking for evidence of compromise, proof that emotion had destroyed the perfect killing machine they'd spent years creating. The note on my coffee table confirmed my worst fears. "Clean up your mess, or we'll clean it for you." No signature needed. Walsh's handwriting was burned into my memory from dozens of contract briefings. I grabbed emergency supplies, fake IDs, cash, weapons, and raced back toward Nora's apartment. If they hadn't moved against her yet, I still had time to get her out. But the black sedan was parked outside her building. "Shit," I breathed, pulling into an alley across the street. Through her apartment window, I could see figures moving around. They'd already breached her sanctuary, contaminating everything pure in my life with their poison. My phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number inside. "Come alone or she dies." Terror and rage warred in my chest. 3 armed professionals against 1 compromised asset. Bad odds under normal circumstances, impossible when they held the one person I couldn't bear to lose. But Nora's knowledge of Raleigh's postal routes might provide advantages they hadn't considered. Every alley, every shortcut, every building with multiple exits. She'd memorized them all during 5 years of mail delivery. If I could reach her, if she was still alive, if. The building's service entrance was unlocked, security compromised exactly as I'd expected. They wanted me inside, wanted this confrontation contained and controllable. Too bad for them I'd never been controllable, even when I was following orders. Second floor, apartment 2B. I could hear voices through the thin walls, two men discussing cleanup protocols while a woman's voice remained conspicuously silent. Please be alive, Nora. Please be smart enough to stay quiet and wait for me. The door stood slightly ajar. Classic tactical error. They'd grown overconfident during years of eliminating targets who couldn't fight back. But I wasn't a helpless target anymore. I was a woman in love with everything to lose and nothing left to fear. Time to remind them why they'd recruited me in the first place. I kicked the door hard enough to shatter the frame, diving through the opening as gunfire erupted behind me. Nora was zip-tied to a kitchen chair, duct tape across her mouth, brown eyes wide with terror and relief at my appearance. "Miss me, boys," I snarled, putting 3-round center mass into the nearest shooter. The second man used Nora as a human shield, pressing his pistol against her temple. "Drop your weapon, Taylor. This doesn't have to end badly." "For who?" "Walk away. We'll make it quick and painless." I met Nora's eyes across the room, seeing trust instead of blame. Even tied up, even facing death because of my choices, she believed I'd save her. That faith gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. "Counteroffer," I said, raising my hands in mock surrender. "You release her and I'll come quietly." "Not how this works." "Then let me show you how it works." The throwing knife took him in the throat before he could blink. Nora threw herself sideways as his body collapsed, chair and all, giving me clear shots at the third man emerging from her bedroom. Blood and silence. Finally. I cut Nora's restraints with shaking hands, pulling tape from her mouth as gently as possible. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "No, I'm okay." Her voice was hoarse but determined. "Taylor, what is this? Who were those men?" "Time for truth, all of it, no matter how ugly. People I used to work for. People who kill for money." I met her eyes. People like me. Nora stared at me across her blood-splattered kitchen, processing the meaning of my confession. 3 bodies cooling on her hardwood floor. The woman she'd made love to 12 hours ago, revealing herself as a professional killer. "You're an assassin," she said quietly. I'm done with that life. But even as I said it, the new contract folder appeared in my mind. The one Walsh had left on my counter that morning. "There's one more job they want me to finish." The fitness consulting was a lie. All of it was lies. Until you. She stood slowly, stepping carefully around the spreading blood. "Show me." Back in my apartment, I spread the contents of my go bag across the kitchen counter. Passports, cash, weapons, surveillance photos, and the final contract. Mr. Peterson from Sunset Manor, my sweet old poetry lover who apparently had mob connections from his distant past. "They want you to kill him?" Nora's voice cracked. "He's 87 years old. He has dementia. He's also the only witness to a murder from 1987. Someone's paying serious money to ensure his memories die with him." She studied the surveillance photos with postal worker attention to detail. "These were taken at the nursing home. While I was reading to him. While you were delivering his mail." The irony tasted bitter. "They've been watching us both." Nora sank onto my couch, head in her hands. "This is insane." "There's something else." I sat beside her, fighting the urge to touch her when she might recoil from my blood-stained hands. "They want it done tonight. During the thunderstorm. Power outage will provide cover, make it look like equipment failure. Or they'll send a team to eliminate all 3 of us. You, me, and Mr. Peterson." She looked up then, brown eyes blazing with determination instead of fear. "Then we don't let that happen. Nora, these aren't the kind of people you negotiate with." "I'm not talking about negotiating." She moved to my window, studying the storm clouds gathering again over Raleigh. "I'm talking about getting him out of there before they can reach him. He's in a secure facility with limited exits and professional staff, even if we could extract him without being detected." "You're thinking like an assassin." "I'm thinking like a postal worker who spent 5 years learning every service entrance, every staff schedule, every security blind spot in this city." Hope flickered in my chest despite everything. "You'd help me save him?" "Help you?" She turned from the window with a smile that could have powered the city. Honey, I'm going to show you how this gets done right. For the next 3 hours, we planned like our lives depended on it, because they did. Nora's intimate knowledge of Sunset Manor's operations proved invaluable. She knew which nurse smoked behind the building at 10 p.m., which security guard watched television instead of monitors, which medication cart could be borrowed for 30 minutes without anyone noticing. The laundry service picks up at 11:30, she explained, sketching building layouts from memory. Big rolling bins, usually 2 guys who barely speak English. You want to smuggle him out in dirty sheets? I want to give him a chance to die in his sleep, instead of from a needle full of poison. Thunder rumbled outside as evening approached. Time to move. We reached Sunset Manor as the second wave of storms hit Raleigh. Perfect cover. Staff would be distracted by power fluctuations and emergency protocols. Nora led me through service corridors she'd memorized during years of mail delivery, avoiding main hallways where security cameras might catch our faces. Room 247, she whispered as we approached Mr. Peterson's door. Inside, I found him sitting by his window, watching lightning fork across the sky. His face lit up when he recognized me. Taylor, come to read more Wordsworth? Something like that. Mr. Peterson, do you trust me? His cloudy eyes focused with unexpected sharpness. You're not really a volunteer, are you? Smart old man, smarter than Walsh had anticipated. No, I'm not. But I need to get you somewhere safe tonight. Will you come with us? He studied Nora's face, then mine, seeing past our careful facades to whatever truth lived underneath. There's a storm coming. I can feel it. Yes, there is. But we're going to ride it out together. As we helped him into the wheelchair Nora had commandeered, he gripped my hand with surprising strength. I was young once too, he said quietly. Did things I'm not proud of. But kindness matters more than history, don't you think? Outside his window, headlights cut through the rain. Walsh's people, right on schedule. Time to go, I whispered, but something in Mr. Peterson's expression made me pause. He was smiling. Looking back, that moment of unexpected joy from a dying man taught me everything I needed to know about choosing light over darkness, love over duty, and hope over the familiar safety of isolation. Some storms were worth weathering together. The laundry bin wheeled smoothly through Sunset Manor's service corridors, Mr. Peterson hidden beneath clean linens, while Nora and I posed as night shift workers. Her postal uniform looked close enough to medical scrubs and dim emergency lighting, and my dark clothing suggested maintenance staff. Loading dock, 30 seconds, she whispered, checking her watch. Through the bin's fabric, I heard Mr. Peterson's steady breathing, alive, safe, the first target I'd ever protected instead of eliminated. We emerged into the storm as Walsh's team breached the main entrance. Perfect timing. They'd find an empty room and a carefully staged medication overdose using supplies I'd lifted from the pharmacy earlier. Insulin, potassium, all the chemical signatures of natural cardiac failure. Nora's car waited in the employee parking lot, engine running. We transferred Mr. Peterson quickly, his frail body surprisingly resilient as we settled him into the back seat. Where are we going? He asked, alert despite the late hour. Somewhere you can finish your poetry in peace, I replied. The safe house was 40 miles outside Raleigh, a cabin I'd purchased years ago under false identity for situations exactly like this. Off-grid, defensible, stocked with enough supplies for weeks if necessary. But first, I had loose ends to tie. Take him inside, I told Nora as we reached the cabin. There's a generator in the basement if the power goes out. Where are you going? To end this properly. She caught my arm as I turned toward my car. Taylor, don't. We did it. He's safe. He's safe until Walsh decides to expand the contract. Until they track us here and finish what they started. I cupped her face, memorizing the feel of her skin under my palms. I have to eliminate the source of the threat. There has to be another way. There is no other way. Not with people like Walsh. The truth hung between us like a blade. My former handler would never stop hunting until all witnesses were eliminated. Mr. Peterson, Nora, me, we were all loose ends in his perfectly ordered world of death and profit. Then I'm coming with you, she said. Absolutely not. You don't get to make that choice for me. Fire blazed in her brown eyes. I'm already part of this. They've already marked me for death. At least let me help finish it. Before I could argue, she pressed her lips to mine with desperate intensity. Come back to me, she whispered against my mouth. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. Walsh's location wasn't hard to determine. He operated from a warehouse district downtown, same building where he'd recruited me 8 years ago. Full circle seemed appropriate. The storm provided perfect cover as I approached through back alleys memorized during countless briefings. Security was minimal. Walsh never expected former assets to grow enough spine to fight back. His office window glowed on the 3rd floor, alone, as always, reviewing contracts and counting blood money. The building's service elevator still responded to my old access code. Lazy security update, but typical Walsh arrogance. He'd never imagined Taylor Howard developing inconvenient things like conscience or love. His door stood unlocked. Another calculated insult. He wanted this confrontation. Wanted to demonstrate his power over the weapon he'd created. Right on time, he said without turning from his desk. How's retirement treating you? Better than expected. And the girl? Pretty little mail carrier who thinks she's saving you? Rage flared in my chest, but I kept my voice level. Leave her out of this. No loose ends, Taylor. You taught me that principle. When he turned, the gun in his hand didn't surprise me. Neither did the smile that made my skin crawl. You were my greatest success, he continued. Perfect killer, no emotional attachments, completely loyal. What happened to that woman? She learned the difference between loyalty and slavery. Philosophical? I prefer practical. The shot came fast, but 8 years of training had kept my reflexes sharp. I dove left as his bullet shattered the window behind me, my return fire taking him center mass. He looked genuinely surprised as blood spread across his shirt. Emotional attachment makes you weak, he gasped. No, I said, watching light fade from his eyes. It makes you human. By the time I reached the cabin, dawn was breaking over North Carolina pine trees. Inside, I found Nora and Mr. Peterson sharing coffee and conversation by the fireplace, her laughter mixing with his storytelling like they'd known each other for years. It's done, I announced from the doorway. Nora crossed to me in 3 strides, pulling me into her arms without asking for details. She smelled like wood smoke and safety, like home I'd never thought to find. Now what? She whispered against my neck. Now we disappear. New identities, new life, somewhere they'll never find us. Together? If you'll have me. Her answer came in the form of a kiss that tasted like forever. When we broke apart, Mr. Peterson was watching us with knowing eyes that had seen enough love and loss to recognize the real thing. Young fools, he said with deep affection. Come sit by the fire. Let an old man tell you about the places where poetry lives. Outside, storm clouds were breaking up, revealing glimpses of blue sky and possibility. Inside, wrapped in Nora's arms while Mr. Peterson recited Yeats from memory, I felt something I'd thought was extinct in someone like me. Hope. 6 months later, salty air carried the sound of gulls across Seabrook Harbor. A fishing town so small it didn't warrant surveillance satellites or federal databases. Perfect anonymity for 3 people who'd officially died in a Raleigh warehouse fire during a gas leak explosion. I finished teaching my morning fitness class at the community center. Muscles loose from demonstrating yoga poses to middle-aged fishermen's wives who called me Sarah Mitchell and never asked about my past. The wedding ring on my finger felt foreign still, but comfortable. A simple gold band that matched the one Nora wore. Walking home along Harbor Street, I spotted her postal truck turning the corner. Even in a town of 800 people, she'd found work delivering mail, her genuine warmth earning instant acceptance from locals who usually viewed outsiders with suspicion. How was class today, Mrs. Mitchell? Old Captain Barnes called from his porch. Excellent turnout, Captain. Your wife's flexibility is improving remarkably. He beamed with husband's pride. 43 years married and she still surprises me. The cottage we'd rented sat on a bluff overlooking the Atlantic, far enough from town for privacy but close enough to maintain our carefully constructed new identities. Mr. Peterson, now William Brooks, retired English professor, tended the small garden we'd planted behind the house. "Tomatoes are coming in beautifully," he announced as I approached, dirt under his fingernails and genuine contentment in his voice. "Haven't grown vegetables since Martha passed." "She would have loved this place," I said, helping him carry the harvest basket inside. "She would have loved you girls more. Always said love stories with happy endings were the rarest treasures." Through the kitchen window, I watched Nora's truck pull into our gravel driveway. My heart still accelerated when I saw her, 6 months of domestic bliss doing nothing to diminish the way she made my chest tighten with pure want. "How are my favorite fugitives?" she called, entering with arms full of packages and mail. "Reformed fugitives," I corrected, pulling her close for a kiss that tasted like salt air and possibility. "I love it when you reform me." Mr. Peterson chuckled from the sink where he was washing tomatoes. "Young love. Lucky I'm old enough to find it charming instead of nauseating." That evening, we walked along the beach as sunset painted the sky crimson and gold. Waves crashed against rocks worn smooth by centuries of tides, each surge erasing footprints and starting fresh. "Any regrets?" Nora asked, fingers laced through mine. "About leaving Raleigh? About the murders? About choosing you over everything I thought I was?" "All of it. Any of it." I stopped walking, turning to face her, as ocean wind caught her hair. 6 months of honest sunlight had brought out golden highlights I'd never noticed in fluorescent nursing home corridors. Her skin glowed with health and happiness. Stress lines faded from around those beautiful brown eyes. "My only regret is waiting so long to find you." Flatterer. Truth teller. She pulled me down for a kiss that tasted like forever, her body warm against mine, despite the cooling air. When we broke apart, I reached into my jacket pocket and withdrew the small velvet box I'd been carrying for weeks. "Taylor?" Her voice caught. "We're already married on paper. Legal documents for Sarah Mitchell and Nora Brooks, but I want to ask you properly." I dropped to one knee on the sand, waves lapping near my feet. "Will you marry me for real this time, with witnesses and vows and terrible wedding cake?" Tears sparkled in her eyes as she looked down at the simple diamond ring. Nothing flashy, nothing that would draw attention, but real and permanent, and chosen specifically for her. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, obviously yes." The ring fit perfectly, catching sunset light as I slipped it onto her finger. She pulled me to my feet and kissed me with 6 months of certainty behind it, our bodies pressed together as waves crashed around our ankles. "When?" she asked against my lips. "Tomorrow? Next week? Whenever you want?" "I want forever." "Then forever it is." Walking back toward the cottage, we found Mr. Peterson on the front porch with his evening tea and a book of Wordsworth. He looked up as we approached, saw the ring on Nora's finger, and smiled with deep satisfaction. "About damn time," he said mildly. "I was starting to think you'd never ask properly." "You knew?" "Old man, not blind man. That ring's been burning a hole in your pocket for weeks." He raised his teacup in mock toast. "To love that conquers fear, and women brave enough to choose each other over safety." Later that night, wrapped in Nora's arms as Atlantic storms gentled against our windows, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. From cold assassin to devoted partner, from professional killer to amateur gardener, from complete isolation to this perfect contentment. "What are you thinking about?" she murmured sleepily. "Poetry. Mr. Peterson's favorite Wordsworth poem about phantoms of delight." "Recite it for me." I traced her shoulder blade with my fingertip, voice soft in lighthouse beam sweeping across our bedroom walls. She was a phantom of delight when first she gleamed upon my sight. A lovely apparition, sent to be a moment's ornament. And now? Now she is a woman grown, with a heart so glad and true. Perfect woman, nobly planned to warn, to comfort and command. Her kiss silenced further poetry, but the truth remained. Some storms were worth weathering, some risks were worth taking, and some love stories, against all odds, actually did end with happily ever after.